I got to imagine, actually, that President Trump actually probably liked the front page of the New York Times. I don't know if you saw it or not, but they said there's never been 100 days like this and had every possible category. Depending on who you ask, it's either the most tragic and the most terrible 100 days or the most exhilarating or uplifting. How are you thinking of uncovering these 100 days?
Well, it's not just knuckleheads who say it's horrible or the best ever. It's really smart people. And one of the privileges I have is I get to talk to really smart people who have both views, that this is incredible and this is disastrous. Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, who did an interview with the New York Post around 100 days, and she said on the border, she gives the president an A or A plus. I can't remember which she said, but she suggested for a lot of other things incomplete. And I think that's really the only right grade to give him. 100 days is an artificial construct. Every president and every presidential advisor I've ever covered has sort of complained about it and said, Roosevelt was governing during historic times, and you could do a lot in that period. I think on the big projects, China, Ukraine, inflation, the economy overall, reconciliation, the big budget bill, and of course on tariffs, it's just too soon to say. But even his critics, I think, have read a lot of the coverage, including the New York Times, say most of what he's done, he promised to do as a candidate. Most of what he's trying to do are not some projects that he's invented, but that he ran on, and they may not work out. Tariffs is one that makes a lot of people, you and I both know, a little uncomfortable and nervous, but he's doing what he said he would do. And that's, I think, again, what presidents should do. They shouldn't get elected and then invent some whole new agenda.
As we examine the last 100 days, what can we gather that is predictive for the next 100? The Trump White House seems no signs of slowing down. Momentum is only increasing. And are there any places where you think, based on your reporting, where there might be a little recalibration, where they might have went a little too hot and they might dial it back a little bit?
I'm talking to people around the White House, in the White House. I divide everything into two buckets. There's the tariffs, and there's everything else. And everything else is a big bucket, right? It's got Ukraine and China and non-tariff China and everything else. But the tariffs is such a big deal because I talk to serious people every day, and I know you do too, who think this is the greatest own goal in the history of politics or sports, that he is destroying the world economy, not because of some virus in a wet market or lab in China, but through an act of purposeful presidential conduct. So that's the place where you've already seen recalibration, right? Some of the tariffs that were put on have come off. Some of the strategy has changed. Some of the stated goals have changed. But I think it's not an exaggeration to say in the next 100 days, the second 100 days, how he handles the tariff, the whirlwind he's unleashed through the tariffs is going to be determinative, not just about the tariff policy or his economic record, but I think of his entire presidency. Then there's everything else. Some recalibration regarding Putin, but I think that's more tactical than strategic. I think most of what we're seeing in the other bucket is not shown a lot of change the course or regret on the margins on immigration, on the margins on some of the economic policies. But for the most part, I think you're going to see that more of the same, except in that first bucket where, again, he has bet everything on a theory of how to make this work. And I think the challenges, particularly as they relate to China, are extraordinary. I read the other day, I don't know if it's true, but it's too good not to repeat. 1 in every 3 things that's made in the world now is made in China. 1 in every 3. And I'm sure it's close to true. So how he confronts China, not just economically, but militarily, strategically, diplomatically, this is as big a play as I've seen any president I've covered done. People talk about George Bush trying to change the Social Security system or Barack Obama passing health care. Those were big changes. One case successful, one unsuccessful in terms of passing a bill. But this is reshaping the world economy with a few strokes of a few pens.
Has this taken them by surprise, that this is harder to settle than they might have imagined? And what does the world look like, in your opinion, if Putin says, yeah, actually, I think I'm winning the war. Thanks. I'm just going to keep on marching.
Yeah. Well, great questions. And I'm super interested in it, too. It's an interesting story, but it's also important. And just as with the tariffs, very easy to say the fate of the world hangs in the balance. Look, I think that President Trump doesn't have much confidence in either Putin or Zelensky that they really want a deal. and his public comments reflect that. Some days he thinks, yeah, we'll get a deal, and other days he's very bearish on a deal. My joke for a while has been, and it's a grim joke, that Zelensky will make a deal except under two circumstances: when the war is going well for him because he doesn't want to make a deal when he's on the march, or when the war is going poorly for him because he's on his back foot and he knows the terms wouldn't be good. And of course, those are the only two possibilities. So Zelensky is a barrier to peace as well. He's not a dictator. He didn't start the war the way Putin did, but he is a barrier to a deal because there's no forcing mechanism. He's always looking for something better. I think what the deal could be, and what each side will have to give up, has been clear to everyone I know in the region for a long time. Right? Putin gets to keep some land. Zelensky gets to keep most of his country. He gets some economic security, some military security, but not membership in NATO, for instance. It's pretty clear what it is. But Putin, in the last few days, and his government have made noises that suggest he doesn't want a deal. And, the old negotiating phrase, nothing's decided till everything's decided, that many things will stay undecided, and therefore there'll be no deal. I don't know what's going to happen. And your question, you hear lots of people in the establishment in both parties say, well, if Putin walks away, we go back to arming Ukraine and try to help them win the war. I just don't think there's an appetite for that in this country. So,
Mark, plug your new podcast so our audience can know that, so that you can keep beating us in the charts.
Yeah. Just search Next Up Halpern. You can listen to it on all the podcast platforms. It's also on YouTube. It's part of the Macon County Network. I had Ted Cruz on my first episode that dropped yesterday. Tomorrow, Charlie's close personal friend, Gavin Newsom, will be my guest.
I will listen to that. So that'll be very good. You see, you get all the good guests. I have to really fight and scrap, So
yeah, I got to get you on. But, I can be able to get a better guest because I'm higher than you on the charts.
Well, there you go. That is true. Mark, great work. Thanks so much. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it.